Hello and welcome to this webinar with me, Adam Rose. In this webinar we're going to have a look at smart components and smart fasteners, some really great ways that you can really speed up your assembly modeling within SolidWorks. Just got this camera opened up and I'm going to use this within the first part of the webinar. I'm going to build up a smart component. And for any of you who haven't used smart components before, they're a really quick and easy way that we can group assembly components and features together into a little group so that we can insert them into loads of different models. So it really does speed up your assembly modeling. In this particular example, I'm going to take a cam lock, which I'm going to put in and assemble in place, and I'm going to show you how to create a smart component from that. Now, a smart component is all based around one core component which we start off with. So I'm going to open that up and show you that one. It's the locking screw, which is part of that cam lock. And this will be the basis for my smart component. So you can see it's a circular object and it could rotate to any particular position. So we need to make sure when we bring it into assembly models that it's always going to get brought in the same orientation. In order to do that, I'm going to put in a reference so that it will. So from my features toolbar I can put in a mate reference. A mate reference is a way that we can select one of the faces of the model or one of the planes and use that as the first thing that is mated up when we bring it in. So I'm going to choose the front plane, and that means that whenever I bring this in, the front plane will be aligned to the things I drag it over. I can choose from a series of different mate types which are shown down this left hand side. I'm going to leave it on default, which will mean it will select a series of different mates depending on what we hover over. We can also change the orientation from here, but I can adjust that when I've brought it into the assembly as well, so I will do that afterwards. You'll see there's a secondary or tertiary reference as well, and that's if we want to specify a second or third if the first one isn't able to mate to anything. If I accept that, it gets added to the top of the tree there, and I'll just go ahead and save the model now. Okay, so that leaves me in a situation where I'm ready to insert this component. I'll just minimize it down and I can drag straight from one window to another. So I've already got the assembly model open, and I'm going to take this locking screw and just drag it straight into the model. And you'll see as I move over faces of the design that it automatically aligns. So I want it to align to this face on the inside of the cabinet there. If I drop it at that position, you'll see it's picked up a coincident mate. I'm looking for a parallel mate. That will ensure that the distance isn't necessarily important, but it will always stay orientated and parallel to that particular face. So now I can go in and assemble the rest of the mates in place. Just rotate it round slightly, and you'll see it's moved slightly within this component, which is actually the position I'm going to mate it in place. In order to see through this, I just want to make it transparent. You'll see I've already got a hole created for this component to fit into, and that's the position I'm going to mate it in. So by selecting those two faces, I'm going to add in a mate at that position, and concentric is chosen by default. My second mate is just going to align the top of this edge so that the two fit into each other quite nicely. So that's assembled the first item, and I'll just accept there. And we're going to go ahead and save at this point. So the second part is the actual cam lock itself. I'm going to bring that in from the Insert Components menu and just click Browse to find that. So there's my component. I'll just open that up. Okay, so we can see that. You can see it's quite a complex component. I want to mate it around this circular item. There aren't really many references we could use here, but I'm actually going to mate it in place so that this area in the middle here stays equally spaced around my lock there. From my mates toolbar, rather than using one of the standard mates, I'm going to use one of the advanced mates for this particular first one. And I'm going to go for a symmetric mate. It allows me to select a plane and then two faces to stay symmetrically aligned around that plane. So my symmetry plane is going to be the front plane once again on that locking screw. And the two faces can be this one, and I want to get the back face, so I'm going to right click to select other. Let's move the item into position, and I'm just going to drag it roughly so it's a bit closer to where I want it. Now it's a case of adding in that second mate. I'm going to add that with regards to this midpoint on the curve there, and that's going to be aligned to this face, and you'll see that no mates have been selected by default. That's because the advanced mate select section box is still opened up, so I'm going to minimize that and then expand my standard mates to put in a coincident there. Okay, so at this point you're still able to rotate and move up and down. So in order to fully define this assembly, I'm going to put in a third mate for this particular component. I want to align one of the planes once again in this cam lock here. So I'm going to go for the right plane, and I'm going to align that to the underside face of my cabinet. I want that to be aligned with an offset, so I'm going to go for a distance of 30.5 there. And that positions it nicely in position. So now that I've done that, I can put in the third component that I'm going to insert for this particular smart components group, and that's going to be a cap just to cover up the hole that I'm going to put in. So from insert components, my cap, once again, just from there. I'm just going to right click and drag just to rotate that closer to where I want the orientation. I'm going to mate it aligned to this face and just drag it in a bit closer. I want it to stay fixed to this face here, which is currently transparent. If I click away from any of the components, I can select it, and then I'm going to go for this edge. That keeps the two items nicely in place and aligned, but I'm not particularly worried about the rotation of this component, so I'm going to leave that last mate undefined. That actually now leaves me in a position where I've fully mated up these components, and you may wonder why I've done it in this order. I've actually put the items in before I've actually got holes to put them into within this side panel, and that's so that when I put in the holes I can relate them back to these components, so that the smart component that I'm building will be fully contained. All the references will be contained to the components within the group. So I now want to go ahead and edit this side panel to put in some cuts. I take off the transparency there, and I'm going to edit this component, and you'll see it's highlighted on the left hand side now. So the first thing I want to do is just put on the first sketch for my cut. Now it's a little bit hard to select the edges of this model with them hidden by this large block that's in the way, so I actually need to hide this item once again, but because I'm editing it, I can no longer hide the component as a whole. I need to now hide the solid body. So I'm going to expand the solid bodies folder. That allows me to access it, and then from my display pane, which I'm expanding out, I can then just click on that solid body to hide it away, and that will just make the input of this sketch a lot easier. It means that I can go in and select an edge of the model, and I can convert the entities of that into a sketch. So by converting the entities, I'm taking the reference straight from the model that exists. It's now a case that I want to extrude that, so using my S key, I'll put in an extruded cut, and that will go up to surface. Now you'll notice if I try and cut at this point, that the cut won't go through the model because it's currently hidden. So we do need to just bring that solid body back temporarily just while we put in that cut. Okay, so that's the first one inserted. And now it's the case that I want to put a cut going down through the design to encase that locking screw. I'm going to hide this component away so I can just access the top face of my cabinet there. And once again, I'm going to do a sketch. Okay. I want to convert the entities of this edge now. So once again, I'll just use that from the top toolbar. And I'm going to do a similar cut to what I did last time. Just an extruded cut with an up to surface end condition. Once again, I do need to bring back that solid body. So you'll see that cut get inserted. Okay, so now I'm in a position where I can finish editing this component. I've put in both the cuts I need to encase these three components. And I'm just going to bring back and unhide all of the items that are currently not showing. Now it's the time to save the model once again. And once I've done that, I'm going to start creating my smart component, which is fairly straightforward. All I do is just go up to the top menu, up to Tools, and down to Make Smart Component. We get a menu pop up on the left hand side in the Property Manager, and in here we can select the smart component, which, like I said, was that core object, that locking screw. Now you could choose any object, but I'm just choosing this one as I think it would be the easiest to mate up and insert into any different assembly. The components I want to associate it to it are this cap and the cam, which I'll select from there. And I can also select features. So the features, you'll see when I select that box, it automatically hides away those components that were in the position. So it just makes it a lot easier for me to make the selection now. So just by selecting those two faces, I can create the smart component, and I'll hit the tick just to insert it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save once again. And I'm just going to close down any active documents that I'm not using. Okay, so I'm now at a position where I can insert this smart component into any other assembly. I've got another assembly that I'm ready to insert it into, so I'm just going to bring that up. This drawer, you'll see from my recent documents, I'm going to insert it into here, and the locking screw is going to hold the front of the drawer onto the side. So I'll rotate myself around to a position which is appropriate. So in order to insert this smart component, I first need to insert that core item, the locking screw. So I'll do that from the top menu. Okay, there we have it, and you'll see that smart mate is coming into play once again. You can see that icon next to my mouse, which is aligning it to this side face. And once again, I'm going to choose a parallel mate here. I'll just drag it into position. And I'm going to make this side panel of the drawer transparent once again so I can see the holes that have been already created for it to sit into. So it just makes the mating a bit easier. I'm going to add in a mate coincident to this face here. And I'm going to insert it into the hole. So I'm going to select these two cylindrical faces. And then I'm going to hit the tick. So now I'm ready to insert those smart components into the assembly model. You'll see my locking screw has been inserted, so I'll save the model at this point. and we can see the star next to it that indicates that this is the smart component. So with that selected, I can right click and I can insert smart features, or I can select the icon from the graphics area, both of which will bring up the menu which allow me to make the selections to insert this item. It's looking for two selections you can see on this references box at the bottom left here. It's looking for two faces, one of which is the side face that was the side face of my cabinet, which will now be the inside face of this drawer here. So I'm just going to make this transparent. I'm just bring it back so I can see it again, and I'll select that side face. Okay, now I need to select, as you'll see, the top face on the side of the cabinet. So I'm going to right click and select other to be able to get that, and I can just right click on any item, any face of the model, to hide that away. So there we have the two references we need to insert this, and we just hit the tick and it should go away and insert those into the model. And now we'll find that you've got a locking screw, a features folder, and the two components that we want. And we can make this side component transparent once again so we can see all of those that have been inserted into the model. So you can see how it really will speed up your assembly modeling. We've got all of those features and the cuts inserted up all at once. So that gives you a good idea of how you can use smart components within any model. What I'm going to show you now is another way to insert a smart component into a design. You'll see that on the front of this drawer I've got a series of holes, a series of different sizes. A smart component is great because it allows us to auto size to various different sizes of hole by setting up slightly differently. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So I'm just going to save and just close this assembly for now, and I'll come back to that later on. I'm actually taking the smart component and creating it from this original cabinet assembly. So I'll just zoom out. We can see I've got a handle here which would be quite nice to fit onto the front of that drawer. I'm just going to zoom in on that because that component is what I'm going to auto size. I don't need to create any cuts to take with this component. I've already got them in place to insert them into. So to insert this handle as a smart component, I just go up to the top menu once again, under Tools, Make Smart Component. I'm going to select the handle in that top smart component box, and rather than selecting any components or features, I'm going to tick the box to auto size for a diameter. That allows me to select a face of the design which I want to auto size. Now I've already got a few configurations created for this handle which will allow it to size up this face to different sizes. So I've got 4 different configurations with varying sizes of this end dowel. I'm going to select that because that's the item that will change, and then I can access a configurator table. So you can see there the configurations that I've got created for the design. I've got 1, 10, 12, 14 and 8, and they're the names of the configurations that I've created, and they will vary that dowel by that size in millimeters. So I've named them based upon the size, and it just makes it a bit easier for us to deal with. So I've created those configurations the standard way. I've just opened up the model and done it that, and we'll have a look at those in a minute. What I'm actually doing now is defining a range within these 2 boxes that will allow me to choose each one of these configurations. So for this handle 10mm configuration, I want my range to go from 9.5 to 11.4. And that means that any hole which is inside of this range will automatically select the 10 configuration. So I'll do the same for the next one. 11.5, and this one's going to go to 13.4. I'm then going to go from 13.5 to 15.4. Okay, so that's given me a range for each one of the configurations that I've set up. And I'm just going to click OK to accept and continue. And that's all I need to do. I just hit the tick, and that creates a smart component once again. And you'll see this, for the second time, this handle now has the star next to it to indicate that it is now the smart component. So I'll go ahead and save this assembly, and I'm going to open up the handle on its own so we can have a look at it individually. Okay, so you can see when it's first open, I've got it on the configurations tab. Here's the series of configurations that I created beforehand. And I just want to have a look at each one of those. So I'm going to go right click and properties on that. One thing that I will point out, when you create your configurations, and this is the most important thing when you're auto sizing, is just to make sure that suppress features is turned off. What that option does is it means that any feature you create will be automatically suppressed in all other configurations. So I've just gone through and made sure that is off in all of my configurations, so that when I insert my smart component, it won't automatically be suppressed in every one except for the one that's active. So now I'll just switch to my design tree. You can also see there's a smart features folder and a mate references folder here. It's actually automatically inserted a mate reference for us when we created this smart component. And that's done in relation to the face that we selected. So it means that whenever we drag it in, not only will it auto size this component based upon the configurations, but it will also mate it in place. So it does it two in once. Okay, I want to make this component as easily accessible as possible. I don't want to have to go to insert component every time I want to bring it into the assembly model. So in order to do that, I'm going to save it away into my design library. If you've ever used your design library before, you'll see it's available on the right hand side. It's this tab here, and it allows us to save models or features away so that we can bring them into any other designs really quickly. I've got a folder that I've created called Furniture Parts, which is currently empty. I'm going to drag the name of my handle from the top here straight into that folder. And you'll have to make sure your design library is pinned out in order to do that from this pin in the top right. I can name my feature based upon the name I've got here. And I can also set up a description if I need it, but I'm actually going to accept the properties at the moment. And that saves it away, and you'll see it's now available from that folder. So I can go ahead and just close down this item, and I'll just save the changes. And I'll also close down the cabinet as well. And I'm going to go back to that drawer. So I'll open up that on its own. Okay, so these are the series of holes that I'm going to insert it into. I'll zoom in on those. And if I drag the handle in from this right hand side, you'll notice that it automatically aligns to those circular holes. And you'll see that icon next to my mouse is showing the fact that it's being auto-sized as well. That's not the normal icon you'd see for a mate reference. So I'll drag it into each one of these holes, and you may want to zoom in on smaller holes. It does make it slightly more difficult. But when you're done, you just hit the escape key, and that brings you out of the dialog box. So all of these have been inserted into my design, and they've got a mate reference on them, so they're aligned with that face. You'll see they're not fully constrained yet. They still are able to move in and out. So in order to fully constrain these in position, I'm going to add in a last mate in here, and I'm going to use that using Smart Mates. If any of you have not used Smart Mates before, it's a way that we can mate straight away in the graphics area without having to bring up that mate dialog box with the paperclip. All we do is we select an edge that we want to mate in position, and we hold down the Alt key on the keyboard. And then we just click and drag from that edge to the item that we want to mate up to. And that can be done with faces or edges of the model, it doesn't matter. I'm going for edges here. Hold down Alt and just drag. And it's all to do with using the Alt key. That's what actually makes the item mate in position, otherwise you're just dragging it like normal. So you can see now I've added those mates in position. And if I go to my mates folder on the left hand side, we've got a concentric and a coincident mate for each one of these. And the item that I really want to point out is the fact that the configurations have been auto-sized and auto-chosen there. We've got the 14, 12, 10 and 8. You can see there in the name. So you can see there's some really effective ways that you can really speed up your assembly modeling by using smart components. You really should improve your productivity when it comes to assemblies. What I'm going to show you now is the second part of this webinar, and that's to do with smart fasteners. That allows us to insert items from the toolbox really quickly into the model. For those of you who've got a professional license of SolidWorks, you'll be able to use this feature. And the thing that we need to make sure we've done before we start using smart fasteners is to make sure we've got the toolbox turned on. So I'll go up to my tools menu, and under add-ins right down the bottom, you'll see that we've got it available from the list, and we need to make sure the toolbox and the browser are both turned on. Normally when you'd insert a toolbox item, you drag it in from this folder, and you just pull in the items you want from the particular standard. What smart fasteners will do is it will actually choose for us, based upon the holes that we've put in, the type of fastener that we need, and then we can make some adjustments to that. So to start smart fasteners, you just bring up the button up there at the top, click on that, and it will give you a slightly warning about not working in lightweight mode, but we're not doing that, so we can continue. My selections, I'm going to select the faces of the design. You can also select the holes themselves. And by selecting the face, it will automatically pick up every hole on that face and do all the work for you. So I can select the face on one side, and I've also got some holes through the other side in the same position. So I'm going to right click and select other to get those. And all I do is click add to those faces, the fasteners that I need, or you click populate all to add fasteners to the whole model. So I'm just going to click add for now. That'll work out and pick up on the fasteners that I need for those particular holes. You can see there it's automatically brought those in. They'll be mated in position, and we don't really have to do any work. We've got auto size to diameter and auto size to length chosen, which means that the size and the length are worked out. We can make some adjustments to that in this bottom left hand area in the properties. You see we could adjust to any of the sizes available. But I'm going to go ahead with that and just hit the tick. And that's actually all we need to do. That's inserted those four fasteners there, mated them in position, and you see they're inserted into a folder as well. So it does pretty much all the work for us. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and save. And I'm going to show you another example. I've got this valve that I've opened up here. I'll just get rid of some of these menus. There we go. This valve I'm going to insert the fasteners into. And to do that, I'm going to go once again to the Smart Fasteners menu. They're going to be inserted onto this face and the face on the other side. And I'm going to click add once again. It will pick up those items and the holes that we've got there, and it will automatically put them in position. It doesn't always know which way round to put the fasteners, obviously, so we can do some quick editing just to adjust that, and that's really simple and easy to do. The items are grouped together. We've got a group of 4 over here for this face and a group of 4 over here for this one, so we can edit the grouping to change that, and we can expand those groups to have a look at a series, which is basically the group of items together. And if we right click on that series, we can flip all of those together. You'll see we can also access properties and delete the items from here as well. We can pull groups together by dragging, and that will combine them, and it means we can edit them together as well. So it makes the Smart Fasteners even quicker. I'll now go and click on Edit Fasteners once again. It takes me back to the menu I was on before, and I just select the particular group I want to edit to bring the properties up for that. you'll see that in this particular example, I've got some more boxes. I've got a top stack and a bottom stack, and that's available for items that go through all. In the top stack, I can enter in items that will go near the head of this this bolt here, and in the bottom stack, I can enter in items on the other side. So you'll see I'm going to select a narrow flat washer for the top stack, and that just takes a second to insert an auto size. And once again, it's not only going to make these fasteners, but it's also going to make in those washers as well. In the bottom stack, I'm going to do a similar thing. I'm going to put in a hex nut. Okay, so that's inserted that one in. And it's got it in position as well. And you'll see it's auto size to the length automatically because of this tick box that we've got turned on. So it really has done all of the work for us. So we just go ahead and tick to confirm. So we've got the mates inserted, we've got the fasteners, and we've got, you know, over a dozen components inserted there in what could be under 10 seconds. So hopefully that's given you some ideas of some ways you can really improve your productivity when it comes to assembly modeling. Thanks very much for watching, and I'm now going to take any questions that you want to throw at me, basically. And I would like to point out at this point the future webinars. We've got one on sustainable design, one on weldments of furniture design, and one for creating assembly and drawing templates. Okay, thanks very much.